everyone, I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Thanks for joining me today. How great does it feel to garner 10 Emmy nominations for Nat Geo's first ever scripted television show, Genius? Stick with me, I'll be right back to dish on it with executive producer Sam Sokolow.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, we know that. The theme song from Genius. Oh my gosh. Hot out of the box. First scripted ever television show by National Geographic. 10 Emmy nominations. Sam Sokolow, thanks for being with me today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Elizabeth.
So before we get into it, first I'll tell people where they can find me, and then Sam will do the same. You can find me on Dinner Party CHGO for Instagram and Twitter. And I'm still on Facebook, people, so you can find me there at Elysabeth Alfano and all my celebrity interviews at the Dinner Party TV. Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me at our company website, EUESokolow.com, or in my office.
Or don't stalk him, people.
Working.
It could go that way. So before we get into all the joy and all the drama that is Genius, tell me, how did you get into producing?
That's a great question. I come by it natural, as they say. I grew up in New York City, in Manhattan, and my mother and father both produced different things at different times. My mom was an executive in the film industry and the television business in the 70s in New York. Unbelievably dynamic woman, brilliant, strong.
Love it.
Oh, awesome. And my father, equally a fantastic man, great thinker, passionate man, brilliant guy. And they, at different times, produced independently or together different types of material, be it independent films, television movies, feature films, working in the intellectual property world, which are books, and harnessing books
to bring them to media.
Into media properties, finding talent associated with the Broadway world and nurturing them. So I was around this quite a bit as a kid. I mean, my whole life, really. The one story that I always remember, there was a movie made in 1977 called The In-Laws with
Alan Arkin and
Peter Falk.
Right,
and
I was going
written
to say
by
Columbo.
the great Andy Bergman. And my mother was the development executive on that film, and I was a kid, very young, but I read the script. It was one of the first things I read in that format and medium. And then after school, I got cab money to go meet her, and she would be on set, and I watched a little of it get made, and it made such a huge impression on me that years later, when my parents tried to encourage me to go into a real business, go to law school, go get into real estate, and I was like, that
ship has sailed.
That's
folks.
what I want to do, and it's always looked like so much fun. And being around it, you get to know the people that do it, and just love them all. And as a kid, didn't really know anything other than they were like our fabulous uncles and aunts and friends and all these folks. And then you realize that there are people that are in this business that are really pursuing storytelling as a career, and it seemed very possible. So I always wanted to do it.
I interviewed Ileana Douglas, and she said the same thing. She would be on the set with her uncle, Melvin Douglas, and then when it came time to get a real job, she was like, oh, I can't. I could never leave that excitement and thrill and buzz of seeing everything come together and these actors giving it their everything and being on set with all these personalities. And so once you've got the bug, there's no going back.
There's no going back, and that's a good thing. I think that's something that everybody that does it for a living shares. Is that you've really dedicated your life to it. And, for me, producing as a career didn't fully, I think, start to realize itself until I was 30. And I had spent several years in my 20s doing different things and trying to find my place. I knew I wanted to be in the media space. I knew I wanted to be in storytelling. I was a journalist. I was a crime reporter for the New York Daily News for a year in the early 90s. Then I produced TV commercials at 2 different ad agencies. And then I made an independent feature. Me and a partner wrote, produced, and directed. And ultimately, we ended up the first guys that ever used the internet to self-distribute a movie. And by the time that experience happened, I think personally, I can't speak for anybody else in the process, but personally, I was able to look at that experience, that body of work up to that point, and know that my strengths were in producing. They weren't necessarily in writing, directing, acting, any of the other mediums, technical parts of it. I really had a knack, I felt, for motivating things and bringing people together and building teams and seeing things through.
Well, you give me a great segue, and you answered it a little bit, but I'm going to delve into that a little bit more. So everybody here in Los Angeles, we know what it means to produce, but I remember when I would tell people back home in Chicago, I have a television show called The Celebrity Dinner Party, and people say, well, what do you do on that? I say, I produce and I exec produce, and they're like, what does that mean? So tell people, what is a day in the life of, an average day of a producer and or executive producer?
Well, there are many kinds of producers. I think when you watch the credits of anything, you see all different kinds of producers. So, you know, first and foremost, television and filmmaking, they're a team sport. And
an ensemble.
It's a complete team sport from start to finish. And what I love about producing now as an executive producer of television is being contributive in that entire experience, from the time something begins, when my journey with Einstein and Genius began. My business partners in New York, Chris and Jeff Cooney, had the option on the book with a partner named Gigi Pritzker from OddLot, and the president of Gigi's company, Rachel Shane, and I began the process of developing the book for television. So taking it from a book and motivating it, I mean, not to be a pun, physics pun, which is never funny anyway, but I don't do often.
But the show lends itself.
But I put a ton of energy into it, and we sort of created matter. We created something.
Right, from nothing.
From an amazing book.
Right. Oh, okay, fair enough.
By an incredible writer, and from an incredible life story. But in that particular project, we then crafted this idea of a 10-hour and a more deep look at his younger life and the volatility of his young life, which we thought was the kind of drama that would work well on television and serve the 10-hour format really well. There's a lot of story to his life that people don't know.
Right.
That framed who he was, and that's a great opportunity. And then a writer, we brought on found a writer named Noah Pink.
So talented.
Another OddLot executive found Noah, and a brilliant young writer who had such a great grasp on this. Now, Noah is also a producer on the film, on the TV show, an EP. And so, along the way, different people do different jobs and certain credits are assigned. I can tell you one thing, nobody gives credits away in this
lightheartedly.
Business. Yeah, so, it does take a lot of producers, I think, to ultimately craft and birth something this big. So then we nurtured that into what we felt was a really fabulous script. And then it needed additional elements to warrant, I think, the size of the production and dream that we had. And we were fortunate to get it to Ron Howard. And, Ron is such a brilliant filmmaker and such a, I think, incredible, I hate to use the word brand when you talk about somebody, but I mean, he's unbelievable. So it then took on another life. And Ron and Brian are also executive producers, as is Gigi. So, it does.
Ken Biller.
Ken, oh my gosh. And then Ken came on, the showrunner. And again, I what a feat of writing. He oversaw and led. Mm-hmm. And so different departments have different leaders. I mean, Ken as the showrunner really leads the entire machine.
Right. On a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
Keeping that running.
And while he's doing that, I'm contributing to the creative process, making sure that I'm integrating my ideas and my company's ideas into the process in a productive way that keeps things moving forward, because television moves at a really big pace. But because of Ken and the incredible people that are on the project, once this particular thing was off and running, you're also then free to develop some other things and work on the next projects that you want to do. There are shows that I've been the executive producer in charge of delivering the show, and that becomes a more all-encompassing chapter.
More tactical, really.
Yeah, and for those weeks or months, well, you're just in it 24/7 when you're the one in that creative lead role. And so I think as a producer, one of the exciting parts is it's not that you never know what's coming. You hopefully are ready for your day every day and know what's coming, but your roles change on different projects and you contribute in different ways. I do a great deal of developing of material, either from existing intellectual property like other books or graphic novels or articles or people's life stories. You know, you can get somebody's life rights directly from them. And then I love motivating things from that place forward and putting great teams together.
So one of the things that you don't say exactly, but you touch on here, and I think it's brilliant because a lot of people don't realize this, you know, in a way the producers can go sort of unsung heroes, if you will. They are really the ones with the vision. So someone has to have the vision for everyone to gather around and then move forward. And so it's often the executive producers who come with this vision of what it could be. Tell me, because I think it took either 8 or 10 years to get Genius to television. Tell me why that took so long, because you look back, of course, hindsight being 20/20, and you think, who doesn't want to know this story?
Well, you know, for several years before I got involved and we decided to go down the line of television, there were a few attempts to do it as a feature film, as a big, large-scale feature. And I think that is one reason it took some time. Once we really dedicated ourselves all collectively to doing this for television in this limited series format, and we all, I think, at that point shared that vision, it really moved as quick as anything I've been a part of. It was magical. It's the thing, I mean, I've been doing this, you know, for a long time. This is a 20-plus year career, and you see things move efficiently sometimes. You see things not move efficiently other times. And navigating, nothing just happens. You know, everything has to be navigated through each step of its process. Once we dedicated to television, I mean, it was under 3 years to screen. And once we had Ron involved, I mean, it was like 14 months to air.
And was Ron involved when it was potentially going to be a film, or did he only get involved at the TV stage? And what was that like to bring him on for TV? And this is really his first foray into TV.
Sure.
In
And when
terms
I
of
say
directing.
Ron, of course, I also mean Imagine and you know, Brian Grazer,
All
and
that
Francie
is
Calfo,
Ron.
Anna
Oh,
Culp. Yeah, I mean, but Ron as a filmmaker and a visionary actually is, I mean, it's interesting use of the word vision. There's a big, broad vision that we shared to get the ship out of the dock. And we know that coming with this type of material and nurturing the material to where we think it's worthy of our big, broad vision, it starts to get more specific when a writer like Noah comes on. And then it gets way more specific when
Ron comes on.
Well, even when Ken comes on, and now we're crafting this 10-hour, right, Ken? And then with Ron, I mean, again, there's so much interaction. It's not really a relay race as much as it's a group effort, but those guys and Ron's directorial vision, you know, that's when it becomes something greater than you ever imagined to begin with. You know, I believed, and I think we all did, that there was a great story to tell in Albert Einstein. You know, many great ideas are also reliant on their place in time. And we're at a moment where the limited series is of the moment, and we're at a moment where networks like Nat Geo want to be in this space and tell these kinds of stories in these epic ways. And all those outlets didn't exist that many years ago, or you know, and this particular format wasn't really in vogue as much as it is now, and I think will continue to be for quite some time. And I think a lot of things conspire to give something a chance. But when you get a team around it like we were blessed to get, you know, something like this happens, and you kind of sit back and say, wow, that was, I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of the show. I'm proud of everybody's work on it. And to garner 10 Emmy nominations, you know, I think, again, is a tip of the hat to the team, and certainly to the folks specifically nominated. I mean, their work is impeccable.
Makeup being one, I'll say, and obviously Hans Zimmer, music and makeup, and I believe obviously Jeffrey Rush and you all for being
sound mixing, sound editing.
Yes.
And thank you, you know, the executive producers for Best Limited, which is so exciting. I mean, what a category!
It is so exciting. I'm going to say life affirming and life altering. Exciting. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would. You know, most kids that I grew up in New York, most kids want to play center field for the Yankees, and I wanted to be Aaron Spelling, who's a big TV producer.
Here we go, people.
Right. So, you know, what it must feel like to run out on the field is certainly what some of this rush feels like.
It's got to be wonderful. Let me ask you, when we talk about vision, did you and your team, or perhaps you individually, target Nat Geo? Did you say this is really the right place?
You know, again, everything in its process, when the time came to think about where this should go, because once you have the show developed and packaged, put together with the pieces in place that you're ready to go out and sell.
Including Ron. Ron's attached at this point.
Ron and Brian were on at that point. The conversation then becomes, you know, strategy. Where do we go?
Right.
And the stars just aligned that National Geographic had just sort of announced to the community that they were looking for something like this, a tentpole show. An analogy I use, I don't know if they ever thought this way, but you know, when House of Cards sort of defined Netflix as that type of platform, I looked at it a little bit that way, and I felt that would be such an amazing fit. And there's only so many times in anyone's, it's not just career, but as a producer, you look for the biggest opportunities for your projects. To be the first of a kind of a network,
oh my gosh,
you know, has a lot of potential ancillary benefits of attention and focus, and you know, not that people don't give great attention and focus to all their shows, but it just seemed like a moment in time where that network with this character,
really the stars aligned,
and this filmmaker and this team,
oh my gosh,
was the right. And Imagine had already done Mars with Nat Geo. There was an existing relationship there.
Yes.
You know, so it just seemed like a very good idea. And not only has it proven to be in the results, but I think it proved to be in the process. I mean, everybody that got involved in this at every step of the way pulled in the exact same direction. And a lot of that can be credited to Ron and Brian's leadership, to Ken's leadership, to the network executives' leadership, you know, the studio and all of our contributions, but everybody,
Sokolow as well.
Everybody pulled in the same direction, and you don't see that all the time.
Yes. So to me, it's just a wonderful story. I'm wondering, from the Nat Geo perspective, were they nervous? What were nerves like when this was about to break?
You know, I can't speak obviously to their either individual or collective.
But for everybody, was everyone just on pins and needles, or did you all know we're going to knock it out of the park? Maybe that's the better question, is at what point did you realize, because the numbers were great from the first episode. I think I saw 1.3 million watch the first episode and about 1 million watched every episode after. But I saw that statistic about a month ago, so it's probably even changed to now. But at what point did you all realize, like, we're going to knock it out of the park?
Well, I mean, look, speaking from my own perspective, when you do this for a living and you do it consistently over time, unexpected things happen. And you can make something spectacular and an audience not watch it.
Right.
Success has to, it's a
you only
it's
have
a
so much
symbiotic
control.
relationship.
Yes.
And you can make something not so spectacular and a lot of people can watch it. And so I don't think there's an exact science to hitting it out of the park. I can tell you more specifically from what I saw happening with Nat Geo was they were confident and excited, and that really came from the top down. Courtney Monroe's, the CEO of Nat Geo, was as strong and confident a leader as I've seen at the network level. Say, this is what we want to do, this is how we want to do it, this is how we want to introduce it to the world. The executives that work for her all, you know, have an A game and brought it. And so, you know, I think there was just a tremendous amount of excitement. I mean, you are talking about 2 Academy Award winning producers in you know, an Academy Award winning director, an Academy Award winning actor, something that I think everybody felt very confident in. You're hoping that it finds its audience, and you're hoping that it gets seen and felt and enjoyed in the ways that you dream of.
Yes.
But I don't think anybody goes into something planning for specific success or not. You have to. Everybody has to guard themselves individually for what might happen. But I could tell you that you don't really get on calls and talk about how giddy you are all the time. But I think that everybody felt that we had something very special, that it was something very special, and that more as it was going, I was feeling personally, can't speak for anybody else, more people liking it, more people appreciating it. And I felt like it grew in popularity as it went. And then I know everybody was through the roof with the Emmy nominations, including me. Yes. It's a huge honor. And, you know, for a network to do their first type of show in this type of genre, I think is their leadership and vision and belief in it paid off.
Mm-hmm. And there's no way around the work. As you've explained here, everyone has worked so hard and pulled the same vision. And so you have to think like, okay, we're all funneling towards the same goal.
And by the
Let's
way,
hope.
I haven't even mentioned the studio who makes the show and got charged with making it. And it did happen in a relatively efficient way for television. So the pressure that was on the studio, not only for their creative contributions, but for their physical vision for making the show and delivering this show. I mean, I was blown away by their work, and continue to be. So, you know, I think everybody, you know, shares in the appreciation of what's going on and the audience's reaction to the show itself.
So we discussed that a lot on this AFTERBUZZ TV show, which is the Genius AfterBuzz show, and we commented a lot how it felt like a film. And the more we would tell our friends and colleagues and people around us, oh, we're on something called the Genius AfterBuzz show, and we're, you know, breaking down each episode, people would say, I'm starting to watch it, I'm starting to watch it. And the more I was on the show, which lasted 10 weeks, obviously, just like the series itself, the more people and enthusiasm there was on social media and the people that I would meet personally. So I know what you mean, in that the show just grew and grew. I'm wondering, for you personally, what did you learn? Because you are a veteran executive producer. You've been doing it for 17 plus years,
Yes.
almost 20, right? And you have over 20 shows that you've brought to. And
About that.
yes, right, 19, 20. What did you learn from this project specifically?
Well, one of the things that I love about this business and the journey of doing this and producing is you're always learning. I mean, every project, good or bad, and good or bad is a weird word, successful or not, some projects don't make it. You learn a great deal from failure. You learn a great deal from success. In this show, I mean, the biggest thing I learned is when you're surrounded by that kind of talent, shut up.
Oh,
Let them do their
that's
job.
a great one.
Yeah,
Oh.
you know, I mean, let people do their job.
I see.
You know, like if your job is to make the team, you not just let the team play. I'm not in a position to let everybody do it, but my inclination to occasionally, you know, involve myself in certain moments or conversations, just from being a filmmaker growing up and doing some of the work that I've done. I really feel like I learned a great deal about patience and let the people that are world class at what they do what they do, and at least again with your contribution to it, allow the process to happen, and you know, I obviously couldn't be more proud of the results of that. But I learned a great deal of that. I had a friend. Here's the I think the biggest thing that I learned. A buddy of mine in New York that I grew up with has been a part of a company for a long time, almost 20 years. And the company has had 2 different going public, getting bought, going public moments.
2 rounds of that.
Where he's had, I think, a pretty terrific experience by being a part of that company. And there were many years when I was a younger producer that either I or me with one partner were really the creative leads behind something, or sometimes 2, whatever. But, you know, we were the captains of a smaller ship. And he said to me once, try being a part of something really big as opposed to being in charge of something small, years ago. And I've done that to a certain degree in different projects, but I think this was the one that taught me that lesson the most. I'm so proud to be a part of this experience, very proud of my contribution to it, but also feel like I learned a valuable lesson in allowing really talented people to just do their work at every level. And I hope to do more of that.
Well, speaking of more of that, because that was going to be my next question. So you have 10 Emmy nominations, but it doesn't stop there. So you have a season 2. You will be involved in season 2. Is that correct?
We're executive producers on season 2.
Wonderful.
You know, again, the creative team is, I think.
Is everyone staying?
Yeah, Ken is back. Noah Pink is back.
Is Ron back?
Obviously, Imagine. Ron's the executive producer on
So
it.
still back,
Still. And you know, he's doing Han Solo now, which is
I know.
pretty
I know,
cool.
I know. Cool in so many ways.
Pretty cool. So, but the core team is back, and you know, again, judging by the results and what I just said a moment ago, you know, I'm excited to see what the team brings to life, and you know, I'll contribute as I see fit or need, but I think that this is a pretty potent team together.
Pretty rock star.
That's
Let's
about
face
to
it,
go
people.
That's about to go bring Picasso to life,
Well, so
which is amazing.
That's what I also want to talk to you about. It seems that there is perhaps an equation, taking from Einstein, of what they want the genius character to be. So we have some similarities between Albert Einstein and obviously Picasso here, Pablo Picasso. So they're both European. They both end up in their lives coming to the United States. They both have lots of women around, lots of dicey situations in the bedroom. They're both geniuses in their respective fields. So obviously Pablo Picasso changing the world as we know it in terms of painting. Einstein was pretty tepid, I'll say, in his life regarding alcohol and dining, and he was just big on women. But Pablo had lots of drink and food and wine and women and the whole shebang. So it makes for a great story, and he also had trouble with his children, I think, elevating them. So a little bit of that I mean, life is tricky, as we all know, folks. Life is very tricky, and for Einstein and Pablo Picasso and you and me, it's equally as tricky. Being a father is not an easy job, and they all had their pitfalls.
Well, yeah, and you know, I know some of the conversations early on were about, you know, what is genius? What is the price of genius? What is the experience of genius?
What do you mean, what is the price of genius?
Well, I think...
The toll on their life?
Yeah, when you... Potentially, yes. I mean, when you have a gift, that gift can become all-encompassing at many times, if not more than not, to get the most out of that gift. And if you have that type of gift and you want to get the most out of that gift, finding balance in your life is difficult.
Yes.
So whether we're speaking specifically about Einstein or Picasso or any number of the geniuses that have existed, you know, over the spectrum of time in all corners of the planet, I think that there can be a price to pay for genius. Mm-hmm. You know, they're musicians. You know, look at the price some of them pay pursuing their genius. Athletes, you know, some athletes are so in it that some of them don't even bother to start their personal lives until after they retire. Right. And there's, you know, I think a commonality that does or that can exist. I think with these two particular subjects, they happen to be world-changing figures that people know the name but don't necessarily know the story. And in investigating what their lives were like, I think there's a lot to be entertained by and a lot to learn. And I think ultimately that, more than any specific guardrails, is I think the spirit of the show Genius is, you know, who are these people that have changed the world? And you know, Nat Geo being the crown jewel brand when it comes to exploration and discovery and being curious, you know, finding those types of people and exploring their lives, you know, I think is what it's about.
Yes, and both figures are contemporary enough that almost anyone living today would know them, whereas if you had somebody like, let's say, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, maybe that's further back in time and not as pullable in everyone's mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I again, there's a process to arriving at these big decisions of who the subsequent seasons are going to be, and a lot of those things get looked at, and you know, I think that'll continue to be the case. You know, you always want to raise the bar in every way
Sure.
when you're doing a next season of anything. You always want the show to be, I mean, if it has the type of response that Genius has, as good. Of course, you aspire to it be better. I know everybody must feel that way personally across the board, down to, you know, the production assistants. Everybody wants to be a part of something fantastic. So, you know, these are big decisions, and I'm super excited about Picasso.
Yes.
And I'm interested, if we're blessed with the third season, to where it goes from there.
And Picasso would be spring of 2018.
Yes.
But of course, we have September 17th Emmys long before that. So what sort of opportunities has this afforded EUE Sokolow?
Well, you know, we're very lucky to have worked very hard to get into a place where we can be a part of things like Genius. So the sort of focus now is on finding other intellectual property, other books that we think can make either compelling limited series, you know, either with this group or maybe at another outlet, depending on what the subject is and tone. And we've got several of those. A few people that we've partnered up with, even just in the last week on things, and I don't want to name drop, but they're exciting. You know, we're finding that our street cred is a little higher, and that helps a lot. You know, my father taught me a lesson when I told him I wanted to come be a producer in Hollywood at an early age. After we got through the, you know,
Don't do it, don't do
get
it.
your head out of your ass and go to law school. Once we got past that, he said, Sam, and he told the same thing I know to my brother and my sister. You don't really work for money in Hollywood. You work for moments, and
that's
you
nice.
want to try to create big moments that you may get underpaid or underappreciated before certain moments. You may get overpaid or overappreciated after certain moments, but your job is to master your craft and be good at what you do. So we've been developing at EUE Sokolow, you know, Chris Cooney, Jeff Cooney, and myself, Sheila Hawkins. We've been developing at EUE Sokolow, I think, a healthy and exciting slate of projects. We've been fortunate to be on the front lines putting those things together and selling them. We've sold shows to networks as varied as HBO and the Travel Channel over time. So, you know, the ability to work with just the world-class talent in the business and approach people and say, look, we were a part of doing this, here's what we want to do next, and get, you know, a quicker response. I mean, we were already working. I don't think this would have happened if we weren't already at this place, but this is a moment, and that comes with it, I think, a good deal of momentum and energy and excitement around all the things we're now potentially doing. The calls get returned a little quicker, and, you know.
Well, I wondered if people were coming to you.
Yes,
if that
of course.
is happening as well.
Without question. Yeah, at a pretty furious clip. And
wonderful.
yeah, but most of them are longer term relationships, you know, meeting a lot of new people as well. But a lot of folks that have been in our corner or believed in us along the way that now, you know, feel that this is a terrific moment for the company and it's time to do more. But I mean, we've set a few things up just in the last 7 days that at either studios or networks that you know, hopefully will find their way to air and find a great audience. But it's an exciting time to be doing the work. This is, as my dad told me, this is one of those moments, and we're just leaning into it and trying to just do the same thing we do every day. I mean, I did talk to the guys in New York, Chris and Jeff, about this at one point, and we talked about, you know, when the stakes get a little bit bigger, do you change your approach at all? And we all have an athletic background. And so we kind of talked about, no, you stick to your fundamentals. That's what got you there to begin with. You don't make it to the World Series and change your swing.
And then change it up, right?
Yeah. So
that's crazy talk.
Right. So I think for us, it's just, you know, we've got some projects that we believe in deeply. We're going to continue to work really hard on each and every one of them and try to put them together with great people and sell them to great outlets and get high quality shows on the air. And this doesn't hurt.
Yeah, no, it's got to be great.
It's like chicken soup, you know, this doesn't hurt.
I always say nose to the grindstone eyes to the sky. So just keep at it, one foot in front of the other, keep working, and more great stuff will start happening, as it already has. So we know that we're going to see Genius spring of 2018, and you can't name any names, but what might we see other things from EUE Sokolow?
You know, as soon as
they arrive, okay.
As they happen,
as they pop, they can go that fast. So
yeah, I stopped wearing a watch when I got into television. Now everybody has cell phones, so that
Yes.
you know, the joke doesn't hold as well because you always got the time in your pocket. But things happen, and I kind of spiritually believe in getting behind things and working with them and nurturing them and believing them until they happen. And then when they happen, there's a joy to that. But you have to do that on multiple fronts with multiple projects because a lot of projects don't happen. So there are things that might get on air pretty soon that are flowing. There are things that might get on air next year that are flowing. We have a lot going on. It's very cool. I mean, we have a single camera, multicam too. We have a comedy development side. We obviously have these types of limited series and 1 hour dramas that things that could be a little bit of either, but we have several limited series now that we really believe in. And we're just putting a lot of energy and passion into those projects, and history's shown that some of them are going to make it.
Come on, Lucky Seven.
That to me is producing. Again, it's sticking with things. And there's a friend of mine named Jim Amos, a brilliant CEO, a wonderful friend. I met developing a project a few years ago. He's one of the gurus in the country and in the world in the business format franchising world, in franchises. Jim once said to me, Sam, when you have an idea, whether it's for a company or a show, you have to believe in that idea and get behind it.
Yes.
And you know, he said, I guarantee you 5 years down the line, there'll be people to tell if you were right or wrong.
Yeah, no, it's not for the faint of heart, because you might be there 5 years and it could go nowhere.
It could go nowhere.
Yeah, you have to love the journey. You really do, and you just have to love every day of it. And if you don't like the majority, not every day maybe, but the majority, then it's not the business for you, because it really isn't for the faint
I think
of heart.
so. I mean, I wouldn't be. I certainly didn't get into producing for an Emmy nomination. It's a dream, but it's not what gets you up in the morning and gets you going. It's the process of making things.
Yeah.
I love making things. I can't sing, dance, or act, but I love being around talented people. And I found that I had a knack for the organizational parts, motivational parts, and at times the stick-to-itiveness that it takes to get projects actually on air.
And the long-term vision that it really takes. And I love about this process, seeing something where there was nothing before. So making something from nothing, that to me is beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I'm proud of everything that I've ever produced, down to when I was
The smallest
just starting out in New York in the mid '90s, producing commercials, and I would do a radio commercial, and you make a radio commercial in one day,
Right.
and then it's on the radio like 2 days later. And there was even a sense of like,
So immediate. Wow.
but it was exciting. And I know the sound mixer did a great job, and the voiceover talent did a great job, and we all did a good job. And there it is. It exists. I was always proud of the result as much as I loved the process. And from radio to television commercials, from television commercials to independent features, into non-scripted television shows, and now doing this slate of comedy and drama and these limited series based on these books that I love history, and I like learning. So I got to learn so much doing Genius, and I think as you grow, you also can become a little more discerning on the things that you put your energy into, and so things that I can learn a lot on, and I think bigger stories are now just where my head's at.
Well, and listening to you speak, therein really is the award, I think, is that you love what you do. So therein lies the joy. If you get an Emmy, and we all want you to, so come on, Lucky Seven, September 17th, I have a big party in mind at home for me and my friends to watch, because all of our Genius folks and followers, we're going to be there rooting. So I really hope that goes your way. But even if it doesn't, the joy is you love what you do. It's so obvious.
Oh, I love what I do. I feel honored to do it every day. and you know, obviously approaching the Emmys with all the
Humility
and excitement and all
Yeah.
all that it warrants. But I also, you know, the thing that I'm most proud of in this business, truthfully, is my marriage, which is strong and survived, and I'm madly in love
You
with
are
my wife.
one of the few.
No, and we just have a really good thing.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that also looks at the Emmys as, you know, going to be just a killer date night.
I was gonna say.
That's the worst.
Have you guys
know,
picked out your clothes
the,
yet?
The lowest. Well, I got the easy job. You know, I'm in a penguin suit.
It'll be so great.
Yeah.
So our interview is wrapping up here. We only have a couple more minutes, but I have some quick, low down and dirty questions for you. Just shoot one-word answers. Just shoot them out to me. If this isn't sacrilege, what is your favorite television show that you watch that is not yours?
Oh no, it's totally not sacrilege. I mean, I think I can't fathom being in an industry where you don't appreciate the great work,
The good work that's around.
of people. You know, I'm a, like bazillions of people, I'm a gigantic Game of Thrones fan.
Okay.
I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Sunday.
like,
I mean,
gimme.
there's a part of me that just moving to LA was worth it being on 3 hours earlier here at 6 o'clock on Sunday. You know,
I can get my shows
yeah,
earlier.
like it's on. So I love Game of Thrones, and I'm excited about that. I have, gosh, I mean, there's so many fantastic shows out there.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
I know.
You know, I mean, I'm blown away by so many things that are on the air, and I get sucked into them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the limited series format because I do like binging things and getting done in
It's the new
7-8
drug.
hours.
Yeah.
You know, and so at the moment, that's really the one show that I'm most locked into. But there's so many great things on the air, and you know, I enjoy watching almost all of them, really.
So my boyfriend and I had a really fun story. We ran down to Mexico to do a little wine tasting last weekend, and we're stuck at the border trying to get back into the U.S., and stupid us, we're trying to come back Sunday at noon. So there's a 3-hour wait, and we're just sitting in our cars, and it's hot and concrete. You're in Mexico, so it's, you know, super hot. We've got the air going, but it's still, you can feel it like it's oppressive on top of the roof of the car. So I said to my boyfriend, why don't we watch El Chapo? So here we are. Do you know what El Chapo is? The Netflix about El Chapo and the amazing drug lord and how he's trying to get drugs into the United States. And so there we were on the border, just watching El Chapo as they were talking about how they would funnel the drugs underneath, you know, in a tunnel going from Tijuana to San Diego. So
Remarkable story.
That's what we were doing.
Remarkable
Yeah.
story. I'm also I'm into snowfall.
Oh, just started Snowfall.
Yeah.
I interviewed Philippe Valcoste, who is one of the lead actors on that. He plays Pedro Nava. Pedro Nava. So he was just in talking about Snowfall. Very
that's
fun.
cool.
Yeah,
Thomas Shalami is one of the true gentlemen in the business.
Oh, great. I will do that. And I think what I love about Snowfall is it's really a love letter to LA. I love how LA looks in that series. It's almost slightly Technicolor.
Yeah,
It's really well done.
I think outside of the shows, you know, LA's, when you first get here, I mean, it feels brighter
It does.
than almost any city. I don't know if it's the water. I don't know if it's the concrete. I don't know if they did it on purpose. But you're always just kind of like,
it's
you know, you need sunglasses,
Are
which
we
is
on
then
drugs?
is
You're
the
just-
gateway to just being a little cooler than you were before you moved here.
My very last question for you as
Yeah.
we duck out. So you're on the set of Genius. Favorite snack?
Favorite snack?
Favorite snack that you had on the set of Genius that you would always have in your back pocket, can be healthy or junk food?
That's an interesting question. I'm an equal opportunity enjoyer
Snacker.
of craft service. Yeah.
Okay.
So we shot in Prague.
Lovely
and-
city.
Yes, and culturally an amazing place, and the craft service leaned a little into, I think, an Eastern European attitude in some ways. So there were days where there was like some herring, and so, you know, and I would have a little herring sandwich, and there were days where there were some big sausages that you knew were like of the area, and you know, and so like that to me was like the kind of stuff you don't necessarily get in LA, where everybody is eating specifically
Vegan
healthy
casserole.
and,
Yes.
and I'm all down with that. So I enjoyed some of the local fare that was going on at the craft service table, but the restaurants in Prague,
So
when we
good.
got to go out to dinner, I mean, they blew me away.
Did you have that specialty that is Czech that is basically a prune dumpling?
don't.
I'm sending
I'm
you
gonna say
back.
no.
I'm sending you back to Prague.
I'm going to say no because I think I'd remember a prune dumpling.
You would, because it's very
general.
particular and it's just Czech. That's
Yeah.
We end on prune dumplings.
Actually, I will
Hold
say.
on. No, we don't.
Best beer on earth.
Oh, in the
And
Czech
no offense
Republic.
to anybody else, no offense to Germany, no offense to America, no offense to Belgium. I gotta tell you that the Czech beer, that's the
Rockstar. I'm going back to the Czech Republic for some beer. He's going back for prune dumplings. Sadly, we end it there. Sam, where can everybody find you?
You can find me through our website at www.euesokolow.com. And thanks for the time, Elizabeth. I really always appreciate your company.
My pleasure. Everybody, you can find me, Elysabeth Alfano, at thedinnerparty.chgo on Twitter and Instagram, thedinnerparty.tv for all my celebrity interviews. And I'm still on Facebook, people. You can find me there at Elysabeth Alfano. And of course, September 17th, the Emmys. Come on, genius.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.